Yes. I think he has all the possibilities of a distinguished criminal, has Carswell, said the host. I should be sorry for anyone who got into his bad books. Is he the man, or am I mixing him up with someone else? Asked the secretary, who for some minutes had been wearing the frown of the man who is trying to recollect something. Is he the man who brought out a history of witchcraft some time ago, 10 years or more? That's the man. Do you remember the reviews of it? Certainly I do. And what's equally to the point, I knew the author of the most incisive of the lot. So did you. You must remember John Harrington. He was at John's in our time. Oh, very well indeed. Though I don't think I saw or heard anything of him between the time I went down and the day I read the account of the inquest on him. Inquest? Said one of the ladies. What has happened to him? Why, what happened was that he fell out of a tree and broke his neck. But the puzzle was, what could have induced him to go up there? It was a mysterious business, I must say. Here was this man, not an athletic fellow, was he? And with no eccentric twist about him, that was ever noticed, walking home along a country road late in the evening, no tramps about, well known and liked in the place, and he suddenly begins to run like mad, loses his hat and stick, and finally shins up a tree, quite a difficult tree, growing in the hedgerow. A dead branch gives way, and he comes down with it and breaks his neck. And there he's found the next morning, with the most dreadful face of fear on him that could be imagined. It was pretty evident, of course, that he must have been chased by something, and people talked of savage dogs, and beasts escaped out of menageries, but there was nothing to be made of that. That was in '89, and I believe that his brother Henry, whom I remember as well at Cambridge, but you probably don't, has been trying to get on the track of an explanation ever since. He, of course, insists there was malice in it, but I don't know. It's difficult to see how it could have come in. After a time, the talk reverted to the history of witchcraft. Did you ever look into it? Asked the host. Yes, I did, said the secretary. I went so far as to read it. Was it as bad as it was made out to be? Oh, in point of style and form, quite hopeless. It deserved all the pulverizing it got. But besides that, it was an evil book. The man believed every word of what he was saying. And I'm very much mistaken if he hadn't tried the greater part of his receipts. That is from Casting the Ruins by M.R. James. Today's Sunday Penguin for today. And Penguin Classics came out with 2 volumes of classic ghost story writer M.R. James. This is the first volume, Count Magnus and Other Ghost Stories, and this is the second volume, The Haunted Doll's House and Other Ghost Stories. Both these volumes were edited by S.T. Joshi, who we know because he edited a couple of the volumes that we've talked about previously on the Sunday Penguin. He edited the Clark Ashton Smith volume, and he also did American Supernatural Tales, did a lot of work on H.P. Lovecraft, and did Penguin Classics editions of H.P. Lovecraft, and now M.R. James. M.R. James, when you think of classic ghost stories, it's very likely that you're going to think of M.R. James. M.R. James, who was Montague Rhodes James, born 1862, died 1936, worked a very long time at King's College. He was the dean and then the provost, or provost, not quite sure how to pronounce that. But these 2 volumes have pretty much every ghost and horror story that M.R. James did. They are fantastic volumes, great introductions by S.T. Joshi, excellent notes scholarly notes at the end, also by S.T. Joshi, packed full of some very interesting information about the stories and M.R. James himself. The only thing I don't like about these 2 volumes is that they are 2 volumes. This almost certainly should have been a 1-volume edition of M.R. James. That is one way in which the Oxford Classics edition, the Oxford World's Classics edition, has it beat. This is the Collected Ghost Stories edition of M.R. James by Oxford. Fantastic 1-volume edition. These guys do have a little bit more than this one does, a couple more stories and things in this one that this one does not have. But pretty much everything you really want to read M.R. James for is in this 1 volume. All of his great ghost stories are in here. But if you are a completist and you want everything you can get your hands on from M.R. James, then yeah, the 2 volumes from Penguin are an excellent buy. And they are very well done. Still, should have been 1 volume, but what do you do? Fantastic stories though in these volumes. M.R. James, just a fantastic writer of supernatural horror. And that's what these stories are. They are straight up supernatural horror stories. The ghosts that you find in these books are just horrifying and awful and just creepy. They're just not your run-of-the-mill ghosts. These ghosts, yeah. I mean, they were hairy and ghastly and just strange. And he didn't just have ghosts. He had all kinds of other crazy, creepy, crawly creatures, like these spiders you would find in the ash tree. Just a lot of great stuff in these stories. Now, M.R. James was a very scholarly individual, of course. He was an antiquarian, and his main characters were very often scholars and antiquarians who would get into trouble through no real fault of their own. They were basically just everyday, regular people who happened to get in trouble out of curiosity for the most part. Their only crime was being too inquisitive. And very often that would get them into some deep supernatural trouble. Rather ruthless M.R. James could be when he put his mind to it. But yeah, just great scary stories. I cannot recommend this guy highly enough. If you're interested in supernatural fiction, if you're interested in horror fiction, you have to read him. You have to read these. You just have to. If you're just interested in classic fiction in general, this is something you're going to want to pick up and look at. Great stuff. M.R. James. Just towering horror fiction. Hugely influential. He was it shows his influence even today. In some of the horror movies you'll go to see, some of the horror fiction you'll read. There's a lot of M.R. James in all of that. So yeah, the highest of recommendations. M.R. James, your Sunday Penguin for today. Thank you for joining me here for your Sunday Penguin. I hope to see you back tomorrow for Mythos Monday when we talk about the shadow over Innsmouth. So, thank you for joining me once again here at stately Vaughan Manor. Bye, guys.